What if I told you the most dominant striker in modern football holds a world record that has absolutely nothing to do with a ball? This is the story of a goal-scoring machine who was seemingly built in a lab, a force of nature that defies explanation. If you want to understand how this phenom was truly made, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because you won't want to miss a single second of this incredible journey. It all started for me, and for many, with a piece of news that felt like a typo, a glitch in the football matrix. Back in May of 2019, the headlines flickered across screens, simple and stark. The Norway U20 national team had mercilessly beaten Honduras 12-0. 12-0. It's a scoreline that makes you blink, rub your eyes, and read it again. Now, I've been watching football my whole life. I've seen some wild results, especially at the youth level, where the gap between teams can sometimes be a chasm. So my initial thought was, wow, that's pretty crazy, but it happens. A dominant team meets a struggling one. The floodgates open and history is made in a small forgotten corner of a tournament. It's not completely unheard of. I almost scrolled past it, dismissing it as just another anomaly in the beautiful chaos of the game. But then I saw the score sheet. My curiosity got the better of me. I clicked, and my eyes scanned down the list of goal scorers. And that's when I saw it. A name printed over and over again, a rhythmic, almost comical repetition. Haaland. Erling Braut Haaland. It was written there not once, not twice, but 9 times. 9 goals for one player in a single international match. The world seemed to tilt on its axis for a moment. The casual absurdity of a 12-0 win suddenly transformed into the terrifying announcement of a singular, unstoppable force. Who was this kid? This wasn't just a good performance. It was a statistical impossibility, a statement of intent so loud it echoed across the entire footballing world. I had to know more. I dove headfirst into the internet, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Who is Erling Haaland? The stats I found told a story of a player on the cusp. For his club at the time, Red Bull Salzburg, he'd netted 5 goals in 558 minutes of play. Now don't get me wrong, that's really, really good. It's a goal every 111 minutes. For a teenager in a top-flight Austrian team, that's more than promising. But the nagging voice of skepticism, the one that lives in the mind of every football fan, whispered its usual doubts. Sure, he can do it in Austria, but he probably couldn't do it in a bigger team, right? The Premier League, La Liga, the Champions League. That's a different world, and right there in that moment of discovery and doubt lies the very foundation of Erling Haaland's career so far. It has been a relentless, almost predictable cycle. He scores a tidal wave of goals. The world watches impressed but unconvinced. People question whether he can replicate his success at a higher, more demanding level. And then he not only makes the step up, he gets even better. He doesn't just answer the question, he shatters it into a million pieces. I guess you could say that over the last few years, I've become more than just an admirer. I've become a massive fan of this young man. And how could I not? His story is genuinely incredible, a narrative so perfectly crafted, so filled with explosive moments and defied expectations that at times it genuinely feels like he was assembled in a secret laboratory, designed with the sole purpose of breaking records and defenses. His story begins, perhaps surprisingly, in Leeds, England. He was born there in the year 2000. A fact that might seem a bit odd for a Norwegian international. Until you hear his full name again, Erling Braut Haaland. That surname, Haaland. It might just ring a bell for fans of English football from a certain era. And the reason for that is beautifully simple: football is in his blood. He is the son of Erling Haaland, the tough tackling midfielder who graced the pitches of the Premier League, playing for none other than Leeds United and Manchester City in the late 90s and early 2000s. The legacy was already there, woven into his very DNA. In 2003, 2 years after the family moved back to their homeland of Norway, a young Erling, barely old enough to tie his own boots, would join his first youth team, Bryne FK. It wasn't just a start. It was an explosion. His former youth coach tells a story that has now become the stuff of legend. He said that in his very first training session, the first 2 times, Erling Haaland touched the football he scored. 2 touches, 2 goals. It was an immediate, undeniable declaration of his destiny. The coaches looked at each other, a shared understanding passing between them. This boy was different. They knew from that moment on that he couldn't just play with kids his own age. He had to be pushed, challenged, and thrown in with the older kids where his prodigious talent could truly be tested. His ascent was rapid. As one of his trusted youth team coaches, Alf Ingvar Berntsson, was promoted to first team coach for Bryne, he knew exactly who he wanted in his squad. Haaland, still just a teenager, got the call-up for his first taste of professional senior football. On paper, that first season might look like a failure. He was given over 400 minutes of playing time, a significant show of faith in someone so young. But he failed to find the back of the net even once. 0 goals. For a player we now know as a goal-scoring machine, it's a startling statistic. It might seem like he failed to impress, that the jump to the men's game was too much too soon. But that wasn't the case at all. The coaches, the scouts, they saw beyond the box score. They saw the raw power, the intelligent movement, the unshakable confidence of a boy playing against grown men. They saw the future. And they weren't the only ones. By the end of that goalless season, he had concrete proposals on the table from German club Hoffenheim and Norwegian giants Molde FK. It was his first major career crossroads. He chose Molde, a decision that would prove to be pivotal, for it was there that he would, interestingly enough, play under a manager who knew a thing or two about scoring goals for a big club, the one and only Ole Gunnar Solskjær. Now, after that first full season at Molde, you might have looked at his record and concluded that his goal scoring, once so prolific at youth level, had permanently slowed down. The initial promise was perhaps fizzling out. But then, something happened. It's hard to say exactly what clicked. Maybe it was Solskjær's mentorship, the daily lessons from a master finisher. Maybe it was a physical maturation, his body finally catching up to his immense talent, or maybe it was the raw, burning hunger that separates the good from the great. Whatever it was, over the summer break, Erling Haaland found his mojo again, and he found it in spectacular fashion. Playing for the Norwegian U19 national team, he went on an absolute tear. In just 9 matches, he scored a staggering 11 goals. That's a goal every 70 minutes of play. He wasn't just scoring. He was consuming defenses whole. The confidence came flooding back, not as a gentle stream, but as a raging torrent. When he returned to Molde for the next season, he carried that electrifying form with him. He was no longer a promising youngster. He was the team's focal point, their weapon. He played over 1,600 minutes and scored 12 league goals. At just 17 years old, he finished the Eliteserien season as the 3rd highest top scorer in the entire country. The boy had become a man, and everyone was taking notice. Once again, it was time to move. His performances had sent shockwaves through the scouting networks of Europe. The whispers had become a roar. This time, another 2 serious offers emerged, creating a fascinating choice. One was from Red Bull Salzburg, the Austrian powerhouse known for developing world-class attacking talent. The other was from Leeds United, the club of his birthplace, the team his father had played for. The romantic narrative was right there, a return home, a legacy to fulfill. But Haaland has never been one for pure sentiment. he and his team made the calculated strategic choice. He would move to RB Salzburg, joining them in the January transfer window. He finished out that first half-season in Austria, acclimatizing, learning, and still scoring, bagging 5 goals in just over 500 minutes. He was clearly back on his upward trajectory, on a roll simmering just below the surface, ready to boil over. And it was between these 2 seasons, his partial season at Salzburg and the one that was about to change his life, that he would have that iconic, mind-bending 9-goal performance against Honduras at the U20 World Cup. That was the global announcement. Now, it was time for him to take on his first major challenge as he entered his first full season with RB Salzburg, a season that would see them compete in the promised land, the UEFA Champions League. Looking back, I believe his time at Salzburg, that one explosive season, might become one of the most rejoiced and mythologized periods of his entire career, if he does indeed go on to fulfill the colossal potential we all now see in him. Why? Because when you look at the stats, the story is so simple, so pure, so utterly dominant. Erling Haaland was now the biggest, most ferocious fish in what was for his talent a very, very small lake, and he was about to make some serious waves. The Austrian Bundesliga season kicked off, and Haaland didn't just hit the ground running, he erupted. In his very first league match of the season, he scored his first professional hat-trick. The tone was set. Just 3 matches into the campaign, he bagged his second. He was on a completely different level. He embarked on a 7-match goal-scoring streak that saw him collect his 3rd and 4th hat-tricks for the club. One of those, impossibly, came on the grandest stage of them all in his first ever Champions League match. Against Belgian side Genk, in just 72 minutes of breathtaking football, he scored 3 times. His name, once a curiosity, was now being blasted across headlines all over the continent. The world was watching, and that same old persistent question was being put forward again this time, with more urgency than ever before. Okay, but could he really make it against the top-tier clubs? The giants. Well, as his domestic scoring streak inevitably slowed down, it was time for the ultimate test, his 2nd ever Champions League match. The opponent, the reigning defending European champions, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool at their fortress Anfield. Now, as hard as it might be to wrap your head around this now, at this point in his career, Haaland was still being frequently used as a rotational player, a weapon to be deployed from the bench. And in that electric atmosphere at Anfield, he would once again have to wait his turn. He watched from the sidelines as Liverpool, with their relentless gegenpress, stormed to a 3-1 lead. It was an expected result, a predictable outcome given the sheer strength of the opposition. The dream, it seemed, was meeting a harsh reality. Then, in the 56th minute, his number was called. He came onto the pitch, a towering, determined figure against a sea of red. Salzburg were behind the crowd, was roaring, and the champions of Europe were in control. But the moment he stepped onto that hallowed turf, the energy shifted. You could feel it. Something was about to happen. Just a minute after his introduction, Salzburg got their 2nd goal, a brilliant finish from Takumi Minamino, who in a twist of fate would eventually join none other than Liverpool himself. The comeback was on. The belief was there. And then just 4 minutes later, it happened. A low cross fizzed into the box, and there he was. Haaland. Right place, right time, a poacher's instinct taking over. He bundled the ball into the net. Goal. Anfield was stunned into silence for a split second. Salzburg were now tied 3-3. You can argue, if you want to be cynical, that the goal itself was just a tap-in and wasn't technically impressive. You can point out that Salzburg would eventually concede again and lose the match 4-3. But you would be missing the entire point. Erling Haaland was given one small fleeting shot to prove he could do it on the biggest stage under the brightest lights against the best in the world. And he got the job done. The question had been asked, and he had answered with a goal. Now it was only a matter of time before he proved he could do it consistently. His third Champions League match would be against Napoli, a storied Italian club, boasting a defense marshaled by the colossal Kalidou Koulibaly, one of the most feared and respected center-backs on the planet. Surely, this powerhouse of a defender would be able to handle a 19-year-old Norwegian kid. Well, not really. The pre-match narrative was all about this individual duel. Could the unstoppable force be stopped by the immovable object? Haaland responded not with words, but with goals. He would score 2 this time, 2 more confident clinical finishes that defied the quality of the opposition. Despite Salzburg once again going on to lose the match in a thrilling 3-2 contest, Haaland's personal stock continued its meteoric rise. Over the next 2 return fixtures, he would get another chance at playing both Genk and Napoli, and like a machine programmed for destruction, he scored once in both of those matches. By now, I was paying incredibly close attention to Haaland. This teenager, seemed to be quite simply one of the most deadly and inevitable strikers in the world. As the group stage neared its conclusion, I saw 2 potential narratives that could come out of this incredible Champions League debut. 1, he had a strong, legitimate shot at becoming only the 2nd player in history to score in every single group stage match, a feat previously only achieved by the competition's greatest ever player, Cristiano Ronaldo. The weight of that potential achievement was immense. And second, if Salzburg kept losing these tight, dramatic games, I wouldn't get the chance to see him play in the knockout rounds, which felt like a crime against football. As fate would have it, on the final match day, Napoli beat Genk, and Salzburg, despite a valiant effort, fell 2-0 to Liverpool at home. Salzburg were out of the Champions League, and Haaland had failed by the narrowest of margins to tie Ronaldo's legendary record. But still, just to put into perspective how stunning his performance was, a teenager had scored in all of his first 5 Champions League matches. To give you a benchmark, that 5-game scoring streak would be the same as Lionel Messi's longest ever scoring streak in the very same competition. It was simply incredible. I honestly felt a pang of sadness. I wouldn't get to watch this kid continue to make Europe's top teams look utterly silly on the biggest stage. And in a way, my disappointment wasn't just about him. That Salzburg team was special. They had an incredible, vibrant squad. With the likes of Dominik Szoboszlai, the aforementioned Minamino, and Hwang Hee-chan playing alongside Haaland, they had an attack that was pure electricity. I was genuinely putting my money on them to be that year's equivalent of the beloved Ajax team from the 2018-19 season, the underdog that could break through any defense and capture the hearts of millions. But as it seemed, it was too late for that dream. Yet, as one door closed, another much bigger one swung wide open. Haaland got another shot at glory. With his Champions League heroics broadcast around the globe and his astonishing goal record, many of Europe's top clubs began to fight ferociously for his signature during the winter transfer market. His transfer wasn't just appealing because of his phenomenal qualities. It was a bargain of historic proportions, due to a release clause of only 25 million euros attached to his contract. In today's market, that's not just a deal, it's a heist. By the end of it all, after a frantic race involving Manchester United and others, Borussia Dortmund would win the prize. Haaland would join the German giants for the remainder of the season, ending his brief explosive year at Salzburg with a mind-boggling 28 goals in just 22 matches. This was it. Honestly, this was just one more chance for Haaland to show off his goal-scoring prowess. But this time, there were no more excuses, no more questions about the level of competition. He was now playing in the Bundesliga, one of Europe's traditional top 5 leagues. His schedule would demand even more consistent results against world-class opponents week in and week out. So how did he respond to the pressure? Well, in Haaland's first 4 matches in the Bundesliga for Borussia Dortmund, he scored 8 goals. 8. Let that sink in for a moment. That is extremely ridiculously impressive on its own. But then let me tell you something else, something that pushes it into the realm of pure insanity. Over those 4 games, because he was still being integrated into the team, he averaged only 45 minutes of playing time per match. So let's do the math. Erling Haaland was averaging 4 goals per 90 minutes of football in one of the best leagues in the world. I just can't stress how completely and utterly insane that is. He finally, mercifully for the defenders of Germany, failed to score in his 5th match. But then it was time for his first chance at a Champions League knockout match, this time in the yellow and black of Dortmund. And the opponent, none other than Paris Saint-Germain, PSG. This was more than just a match. It was a blockbuster event. Haaland was at this point being frequently and intensely compared with Kylian Mbappe in the global conversation for who was the best young player in the world. Now they would face each other directly. The stage was set for a titanic clash of the next generation. In the first leg at a roaring signal Iduna Park, the tension was palpable. The match was tight, cagey, a chess match between 2 European heavyweights. No goals would come from the first 68 minutes of play. It felt like a single moment of brilliance would decide it. And then, of course, it came. A shot was deflected, the ball looped up in the PSG box, and out of the ensuing chaos, a yellow shirt emerged. It was him. A rebound, a scramble, and Haaland, with that predatory instinct, put Dortmund in front. The stadium erupted. But the drama was far from over. Neymar, PSG's talisman, would tie the match soon after. For many players, especially a 19-year-old, that could have been a deflating moment. Many could even question Haaland's contribution to that first scrappy goal. But he wasn't done. He had another statement to make, and he made it with thunder. A few minutes later, the ball was laid off to him just outside the penalty area. He took one touch to set himself, and then unleashed an absolute thunderbolt. A cannonball of a shot with his left foot that flew like a missile into the top corner of the net. The sound of the ball hitting the back of the net was like a sonic boom. 2-1, Dortmund. It had happened. Erling Haaland on his own had decimated one of Europe's super teams. It's in these moments of immense pressure, when a player has to choose between playing it safe or grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, that we see true character. What do you think goes through a young player's mind in a situation like that, with the world watching? Is it instinct? Is it training? Or is it just pure, unshakable self-belief? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take. Unfortunately, the second leg of the tie would be an upset for the German side. The match was played in an empty stadium due to the emerging global situation, and PSG, despite getting fewer shots on target, would manage a clinical 2-0 win. Dortmund were out. From there on, Haaland would finish the domestic season in what was for him a substantially less impressive run of form, scoring in only 3 of his last 10 matches. Despite this slight dip, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. He had finished his first ever season at the top level of European football with 10 Champions League goals, double digits, in his debut season. Can you believe it? Only 16 players in the entire history of the competition had ever managed that many goals in a single Champions League season, and very, very few had done it in only 8 matches played. To add to that, he finished the season with a combined total of 44 goals in 40 matches in all competitions for Salzburg and Dortmund. The numbers are simply breathtaking. And in the summer of 2022, this force of nature arrived at Manchester City. For just £51 million a fee, that now seems like the bargain of the century, City had secured Erling Haaland from Borussia Dortmund. On the surface, it was a strategic move, filling the one glaring gap in Pep Guardiola's otherwise flawless machine, a true number 9. But what unfolded was something far greater. It wasn't just filling a position. It was the coronation of a king. From the very first whistle of the 2022-2023 season, you could feel it. The raw power, the blistering pace, the almost psychic sense of where the ball would be. Haaland wasn't just adapting, he was conquering. It was as if he was born to play in that sky-blue shirt, moving with an intelligence that defied his years. He didn't just score goals, he consumed them, shattering records with a terrifying hunger. He finished that Premier League campaign with 36 goals in 35 games, a number that wasn't just a record, it was a statement. He had broken the all-time record for a single season in England's top flight. But his dominion wasn't confined to England. Across Europe, defenses crumbled. The Champions League, the one trophy that had cruelly eluded City, was his next hunting ground. With 12 goals, he stormed his way to the Golden Boot, dragging his team towards destiny. The final whistle in Istanbul confirmed it. Manchester City were champions of Europe for the first time. The season ended in a dream, a historic treble: the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League. Haaland with a staggering 52. The monster of Norway had found his kingdom. And with reports of a new long-term contract on the horizon, it's a clear signal of his ambition to build an enduring dynasty at the Etihad. His legacy is already immense. Who knows which legendary story we should tackle next? If there's a player or a team whose journey you want us to explore, let us know in the comments. And that's where this chapter of his incredible saga concludes for now. What a force, what a player. I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment career stands out to you the most? Did his immediate dominance surprise you? Please share all your opinions, your favorite goals, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading every single one and building this amazing football community with all of you.